Good evening and a very warm welcome to one and all present here. Welcome to the first segment of In Conversation, hosted by the School of Public Speaking. In Conversation is a series of discussions conducted by Manoj Talakar, the founder of the School of Public Speaking, with eminent professionals, entrepreneurs, educators, and other successful personalities from society. It is planned as a 1 hour discussion showcasing a specific topic of interest. This is the first segment of the series, and we have the privilege of starting this with one of the most recognizable faces in the HR fraternity in India. Let me introduce our first guest of the In Conversation series. Mr. Ravi C. Das Gupta did his BSc in Biochemistry from St. Xavier's College, Ahmedabad. He's a proud alumnus of XLRI and has also done his LLB. After spending 25 years in corporate HR as a part of various Indian and multinational companies, Ravi founded the RCD HR Consulting in 2015. He worked in various companies like Goodlast Nerolac Paints, Crompton Greaves, SmithKline Beecham Pharmaceuticals, and Allergan India. During his last corporate HR engagement, he was instrumental in elevating Biocon's human capital and processes during the period 2007 to 2013 in the capacity of Vice President and Head Group HR. Under his watch, the group grew from 2,000 to 10,000 employees. His contribution to the HR field has been awarded with the Indira Superachiever Award in 2003, the HR Leadership Award, Global HR Excellence Awards for the year 2008 to 2009, the Asia Pacific HR Congress in 2008, and the IPE HR Leadership Award in 2012. Listed in the 10 most promising HR process service providers 2018 by Silicon India and was featured in their HR process special dated January 15, 2018. In November 2020, RCD HR Consulting was listed and featured among the top 10 promising executive coaching companies by Silicon India. Career transition and coaching have been his closest areas of interest and passion. He has coached business leaders and high potentials in MNCs and Indian organizations. RCD is an associate facilitator with Think Talent Services and a certified coach of Think Coaching Consortium. Ravi is the past president of BNI Billionaires and also the director consultant of BNI Bangalore. He is never happier than when he is traveling. His life's passion is nature photography and being out on the open highway. The company name RCD is a play on the name that he was popularly known by since university at XLRI and stands for Research, Consulting, and Development. Please put your hands together and welcome our first guest for the day, Mr. Ravi C. Das Gupta, popularly known as RCD.
Thank you very much, Anandita. That was a fantastic welcome.
Okay. Now we'll move on to Mr. Manoj Talakar. He is the CEO of Flexi Partners, a 14-year-old HR consulting firm focused on leadership hiring with operations in India, Dubai, Qatar, and Oman. He is the founder of Reflex Training Partners, an experiential learning organization that uses theatre as a methodology of training. Manoj is the director of the Bangalore Schools Education Initiatives and runs one of the largest online platforms on schooling and parenting called the Bangalore Schools, with a member strength of more than 52,000 parents. Manoj has been a part of BNI, the world's largest referral organization, as the past president of BNI Billionaires and part of the regional training team of BNI Bangalore. He is a passionate speaker and has been a public speaking coach for the last 20 years. This led to him founding the School of Public Speaking. He pioneered in online public speaking workshops during the lockdown, and through these, he has helped close to 500 children and adults overcome their fear of public speaking. On to you, Manoj.
Thank you so much, Anandita. Welcome, Ravi. It's an absolute honor to share this along with you, and I thank you so much for taking this invitation and joining me in the first edition of In Conversation. I've looked up to you a lot during the last 3+ years that we have known very closely, and I've heard a lot about you before that also. So it's an absolute honor to have you here, Ravi. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much
Anandita, I don't know
for
if
this
I'm allowed to
opportunity.
say this, but it was a phenomenal job. Thank you so much for the first introduction, and you did a beautifully good job there. Thanks. What do you say about that, Ravi?
I think that was fantastic. I was a bit embarrassed, but
Okay, thank you, Ravi, for that. Okay, so in conversation is something that we've designed as a series of discussions wherein I would invite experts from their field and we would have a quick chat. It's more like a coffee table chat, but unfortunately, I'm not able to serve you the coffee, Ravi, and nor do we have the fireplace next to us. So we'll have to do it through the Zoom as we will do it for now. But this is something that I plan to continue under the School of Public Speaking for quite some time. We have quite a good number of uh, guests also who have joined us so far. I'm expecting more people to join in. And as I said, this is going to be streamed live on the Facebook page of School of Public Speaking. The link has been shared in the in the chat box here. Sandhya, if you could just help me with sharing it once more in the chat box. Others can also share it from there. So welcome all of you. All of you have joined here with us. Thank you for accepting our invitation and being part of this. Ravi, we are going to discuss career transitions, and that's an area that has really come up big time off late. And from what I've been seeing of 14 years of recruitment through Flexi Partners, people have suddenly started talking about this. And the first hit was probably in 2008 when the recession hit and people were hitting a roadblock in terms of what they did. And then
that didn't affect India so much, but globally, definitely.
Yes. And when it started now with the pandemic hitting us and all, I think a lot of discussion is happening on that. You've been an HR professional for more than 3 decades now, and you've seen all this happening through your days. You've transformed companies as it is. So I want to start from you. After 25 years as CHRO of organizations, why take this path of a career transition coach? Why did you feel that there is a need for a career transition coach or a coaching at that point of time? Why did you take that journey?
Manoj, I think it to a large extent deals with the journey I went through myself. Towards the end of my corporate career, I gradually got disillusioned with what a HR head's role is. Or maybe I'd done it for 14 years. I'd done it for 2 organizations, 7 years in an MNC, 7 years in a large Indian house. And I wanted to do something else in my life. I wasn't very clear what I wanted to do, but I was very clear what I didn't want to do. And so when I got out of corporate end of 2013, I actually spent 2014 driving to Ladakh, driving to Kaziranga, driving to Rann of Kutch. I did everything of that kind. And I was not clear about what I really wanted to do in life. It was 2015 beginning where one of my friends who used to head a IT product company with a lot of engineers in India, but their sales and all that in US. He called me up one day and said, Ravi, I have some work in HR and I know that you're not working right now. I don't have a HR person. Would you like to consider doing that? And I was like, fine, I had nothing great to do at that point. So I said, sure, I'll go. And this was, I think, January 2015. So he wanted an employee engagement survey. I designed something. I took a lot of input from his leadership team, designed something which was really meeting exactly what they wanted. And I ran the survey for them. And then with my experience of having been a HR leader for many years, the report I gave him was not just about, okay, this is the area that they're satisfied, this is the area that they're dissatisfied, but I also gave him, these are the possible reasons for dissatisfaction, because when we were designing the instrument, I'd actually run focus groups and got people to talk about, what could be the possible reasons for dissatisfaction. So in the survey, when they said dissatisfied, then they got that drop down where they talked about these things. So I gave him actually, these are the possible reasons why people are dissatisfied. And again, I gave him recommendations from my side of what he could do to set it up, to make things better. So I think that's very different from what a traditional survey is all about.
Yes.
And
yes.
I mean, he was very thrilled. He paid me some 3 lakhs. And then he asked me to do something else for him. I did that. And that's when I realized that while I didn't want to be a HR head anymore, I was very happy doing hands-on work.
Okay.
And that's why I started off RCD HR consulting. The coaching bit happened a little later in 2015. One of my other friends, Mr. Bimal Rath, he runs a company called Think Talent in Gurgaon. He was the franchisee for a coaching platform called News. And he was running a batch in Bombay. And he told me, Ravi, why don't you come and do this? I know this is something which is really up your street. I mean, you have actually been coaching people, but do it with a formal background of coaching. So I went and I did that. And of course, the intent there was executive coaching. But putting my experience of going through this transition myself, of that 1 year of not knowing what is it that I want to do. When people would ask me, and that's very normal in India, people will ask you, first thing they ask you, what do you do? And I say, I do nothing. And they were like totally flabbergasted. Yeah. And then
you can't be in a situation where you're not doing anything. Yeah.
I would go out and explain to them what nothing was. I said, I've driven here, I've driven there, and I do this and I do that. But I didn't talk about work because I wasn't doing work. And that really made me realize that I don't want everyone to go through that 1 year of finding their path again. So that's where I thought the methodology of executive coaching can actually be used very well for career transition coaching. And that's why I said, this is what I'd like to do.
Okay. So it came from a need, and it came from probably having gone through it yourself. And I've for one, I've realized that has the most powerful answers. When you have actually gone through that, your answers are always very, very powerful. Okay. Now, a lot of HR folks have joined us who probably know inside out of what career coaching is, but I mean, career transition coaching is, but there are also a lot of people who are looking out to kind of understand. So in layman terms, if you want to put out what exactly is career transition coaching, and what can they expect out of this?
Yeah. So the first thing you need to understand is career transition is not a job change. I mean, if you move from doing a particular job in one company, you move into another company, do pretty much the same thing. Even if it's a different industry, it's largely the same. But career transition is really, when you're making a break from what you've done in the past and you're actually starting off something totally new. There is an internal shift within you that you no longer want to do something, or you want to do something else with so much of urgency, with so much of passion, that you feel that, okay, this and that don't work together. I need to stop doing that and then start doing this. And that's where career transition comes in. So it really begins with getting out of what you are doing. There is a time of disengagement, disillusionment, all those kind of things, followed by a period where you're sort of neutral. You know that, okay, that's not what I want to do. I'm not very sure what I'd like to do. And then gradually, as you get more and more in tune with your inner self, because it's essentially your inner self that is drawing you in a different direction. As you get more connected with that, that's when you suddenly spot opportunities in this new area. And then you realize that, okay, this is something that I can do. If you relate it back to the example I shared of myself, exactly what happened. I had no clue that I wanted to do consulting, but once that opportunity came up for consulting, I went into it thinking, okay, yaar, kuch paise milenge. I won't say no to money, but I enjoyed doing it, and that's what made me do more and more of it.
Got it. So the starting point, it starts from inside you. That is what I understand. At some point of time, you realize that, okay, I need a change. I need a break. Is that the starting point, Ravi?
Absolutely. So again, if I would share my personal experiences, at least for 2 years before I left corporates, I used to have Sunday evening, what is it called?
Sit down.
Yeah, whatever. And it was just like, I would realize, oh hell, the weekend's almost over. From tomorrow, whole
So
new week.
that's your self-realization time kind of thing.
And I have to go through the same thing all over again for another week. And Friday is like way off in the future. And that's how it all started. Until a point of time where you feel like, that's it. I can't take this anymore.
Okay. So it doesn't matter who it is, right? If it can happen to a CHRO, it is very possible that it can happen to a guy who's just come in also, but at different level. So it starts from inside you. And then you realize, okay, what I've seen, Ravi, is that there are typically two types of transitions that people look at. Now that once you said that if it is within the industry or within the same fraternity, etc., necessarily need not be career coaching. So if it is an HR folk and he says, okay, I am in recruitment, I want to move into L&D or I want to move into Comp and Ben, we may not call it as a career transition. But if it's a marketing guy and he says, okay, let me get into HR, that is where the whole thing comes in. I mean, I've been a sales guy for a good part of my career. I mean, I've never gone through it. I enjoyed sales all throughout, but I could have probably hit a roadblock. I probably jumped out before that I hit there. But yes, I was in that phase myself. So what if as a guy, so there are two parts to this. One is the part wherein somebody who doesn't want to take a break in his career, he wants to change his career. So let's start that first. So if it's a guy who's a salesperson and wants to get into, say, finance or HR or any of that stuff, how does that transition happen? Where does the coach come in to kind of help him in that transition part?
See, I think for him, the best opportunity would really be if he could engineer that transition within his own organization. Because within the organization, he's already got a good amount of goodwill that he has earned over the years. People have understood what his skills and capabilities are. They understand him as a person, and they may be more willing to do that leap of faith and give him that opportunity that he's looking for. So if he can actually get it within the organization, nothing like it, he doesn't need a coach. He needs good rapport with senior people, and he can probably get that opportunity.
Okay.
It's when it does not happen within the organization that you need to make a clean break. And when you're doing that, I think the first thing is you need to have a very compelling story. You need to be able to explain why me, why should, I mean, let's say somebody has worked for 10, 15, 20 years, and then he's looking at this change of function. A recruiter or someone taking in a new applicant, I mean, he has a choice of somebody who's done 15 years in that function. You've got this guy who's done 15 years in another function. Why would you take him?
Correct.
Yeah. So you have to make that very compelling reason of why you want to do this in the first place. Two is, I think you need to be able to relate your past experience in the context of this role that you're looking for. Talk about what it is that you've done that prepares you for this, or what is it that you've done that is very aligned with what this is.
Okay.
So you need to find those commonalities and you need to project it. You entirely need to rewrite your CV. I mean, you can't take that old CV and just change the heading,
I can't. Correct, absolutely. Yeah.
Because it just
and I do come across a lot of them. Yes.
It just won't fly. So you have to rewrite the entire thing, trying to project your skills and competencies in the area that you're looking for. Okay. But I think the coach is not really meant for this either.
Okay.
The coach is meant for someone who doesn't know what he wants to do.
Correct.
The coach.
So I'm coming to that, Ravi. That's where I'm leading to. So the first part is that, okay, you understood that you want to change. You've understood that you want a break. You want to shift or whatever it is, and you have the will to do it. Then you're saying that, okay, do the skill part also. So how do you get that skill? It is just not that I say I am a sales guy for 15 years. Tomorrow I want to be in HR, and the HR says, hey, welcome, we are waiting for you here. It doesn't happen, right? It doesn't typically happen. So you need to kind of skill up there. So in that case, do you think that upskilling is a very, very key part in that space? Is there something that you would recommend to people?
See, in terms of upskilling? Yeah, upskilling is definitely important. You certainly need to know the lingo of the area that you're applying for. But I think more than upskilling, you need to know yourself. And what I mean by this is that I think every single one of us have been born with certain talents. Some of us discover those talents very early in life and we hone those talents. And you know a lot of sportsmen who right from a very young age, Tendulkar being say an example. From a very young age, they've been coached in that. He develops a skill, he comes out with it. There are some others who realize their skills maybe mid-age, midway in the life. And there are some unfortunate ones who actually go through life without realizing what their real talents are. And that could be sometimes because of lack of opportunity. See, people like you and me, we've had an education, we've had family support, we've had all sorts of things. There are a lot of people who they need a job to survive. They need to provide a livelihood. They need that livelihood to provide 2 square meals for their family.
Absolutely.
And for those people, that these kind of things is a luxury. They just, I'll do anything as long as I'm earning money.
Correct.
So for that kind of guy, sometimes they may not discover their talents. There's a guy.
They won't take a risk, Ravi. More importantly, the risk factor. You can't afford that risk.
Exactly, you can't afford the risk. I think it's not that you don't want to take the risk,
but
you don't have that.
So it is not just the comfort zone. So they say that nothing grows in a comfort zone. So there is one set of people who are there in the comfort zone and they know that they can't grow there, but they remain there. The second set of guys want to take it, but they don't have the risk appetite because of various reasons. The second category of people is what I'm really interested in, wherein these are people who probably have hit that roadblock in their career. As we call it, they've hit the ceiling, and they're really looking at what next. And this is a typical example you also said about yourself, and you've hit the roadblock, you've hit the ceiling. What next is a question that comes in, and that's where I think career transition really comes up, and coaches really take a big role there. So can you share your thoughts on that, Ravi?
Yeah, I'd like to just preface that with a little bit about what coaching is, because there's a lot of misconception about what coaching is actually. And in India, you have that tradition of a Guruji who will tell you what to do, and I don't know, as a society, we are the kind who you tell me what to do and I'll blindly follow it. And that is not what a coach does at all. A coach does not tell you, go and do this. That's what a consultant might do. That's what a trainer might do. A coach actually asks questions. A coach helps you to find solutions to things that you're grappling with from within. So he doesn't tell you, this is what you need to do. He asks you, what do you think would excite you? And many other such things. So he basically asks open-ended questions and he gets the person to introspect. He gets the person to look within and find answers for himself. And it might be a longer process than just telling them, okay, go and do this. But the aha that you get out of it when you realize something for yourself, it is an impetus for action.
Okay.
So what I think the coach really helps you with is he shows you a mirror. And he could ask you, and he doesn't just ask pleasant and polite questions, he asks you tough questions as well. And forces you to look at yourself, forces you to look at habits, behavior patterns that have held you back for a long time. And forces you to rethink, if I continue to do this, then this is where I'm going to be.
Okay.
And is that what I want to do? If not, I need to break that habit. I need to make a change. So he forces you into that realization. And it's very different when somebody realizes for themselves than when somebody else tells them. It's when they realize for themselves that, okay, this is something that I need to do. That's what propels you to make a lasting change.
Got it. Okay. That's the role of the coach.
Yeah.
Now, in this case, what we were talking about is somebody who's hit the ceiling and trying to do that. So I think that's where the coach really comes into play than the previous case that we discussed. So,
Let me just, I missed that part of it. Let me just, so what the coach will do there is also he will help you to look at what are you passionate about. And he will make you look at what you're passionate about right from your early days. He will also make you look at what are your strengths, what are the things that you're really good at doing. And if you can find something which is overlapping between your passions and your strengths, that is the area that you need to actually explore. Explore doing something where you're playing to your strengths, where you are passionate about, because that's some area where you're going to excel. That's some area where nothing is going to hold you back. That's some area where you don't have to worry about Sunday, Monday, anything.
Okay. So you sit with him. So can you just quickly take me through this whole process? How if somebody comes and says you that I've hit the ceiling, I've hit the roadblock, I've hit the brick wall, I don't know what to do. What next from that?
No, so see, Manoj, it's also, have you reached a brick wall in the sense of, is the organization not promoting you anymore, but you're still very happy to do what you're doing? In which case you actually just look for another organization where you can continue to do that, maybe at a higher level or whatever, but you still continue to do what you're doing. What I'm talking about, the transition happens when somebody doesn't want to do that anymore. So the brick wall is not an outside wall. It's something within you. It's something where, I'll tell you, let me just take a step back. See, many people, they don't get into careers by choice. They ask people, okay, what's a good thing to do? Or their parents say, Nene, you must become a doctor because your grandfather is a doctor, your uncle is a doctor. I am a doctor, you bloody well be a doctor. So he becomes a doctor, but his heart may not be there. Or he becomes an engineer, or he becomes whatever, But so that, and somewhere along the line, a few years pass, he gets a family, he has his EMIs to pay, all that. But somewhere he realizes that I'm not getting any younger. He realizes that life is passing me by. And he realizes I'm doing something that my dad wanted me to do or my grandfather wanted me to do. This is not what I want to do. And if I want to do something for myself, then I better start doing it now because I don't have too much time left. That's the kind of place where I'm talking.
So it necessarily need not mean that I felt that I need a career transition, and it may not be true also at times. When you sit with him and you understand him, you might as well advise him, okay, you don't need career transition. So that's also a possibility.
Absolutely. And see, career transition is it's not an easy process. It's not a simple process, and it's a time-consuming process. There's a lot of what would you say? You go through anxiety because you don't know what am I going to do next. You're getting out of something, you have no clue what you want to do next. Some people are comfortable with that, some people are not. So I would not push anyone into, okay, you need a career transition. It's when they say that I don't want to do this anymore, and I'm very clear I don't want to do this anymore, that you look at a career transition.
Okay.
There may be somebody who says, I would like you talked about somebody who in market, who's in sales, who wanted to do marketing. Mm-hmm. That's an easier one because he has an idea that, okay, this is something that I would like to do. And then you're really just helping him transition from one role to another.
Okay.
But career transition in the classical sense is someone who he makes a break from what he was doing and he goes through a process of exploration before he arrives at what he would like to do next. Understood. And I would not push anyone into that.
Okay. So what we have seen of late, Ravi, especially after the pandemic has hit us, is that the whole personal touch is getting slowly lost. So you always had these mentors in office. You always had that one buddy in office, or that person that you could always run into. It could be a boss, it could be a manager, anybody for that matter. That is slowly getting lost today because a good lot of us are working from home and you don't have that. So do you think at this point of time, especially in these scenarios, an external coach takes a much bigger role, or should people actually be starting to look at external coaching also and just not look up to that one person who's in your office whom you consider as a mentor or a coach?
Absolutely. See, I mean, that mentor is something when you're looking at progressing within a particular organization, because the mentor knows the ropes within that organization. He can help you steer through the landmines that may be along the way. He knows the pitfalls. He tells you what to avoid. He tells you who to pushy up to. He tells you who not to cross. That's what a mentor does. A coach is really someone, and ideally, a coach will never be within the organization. A coach is always an external person, because a coach is someone with whom you bear your soul. And unless you are confident that this person has nothing to gain out of this, he is, whatever I tell him is going to remain absolutely confidential, you are not going to do that. So, per se, coaches are external. And yes, I think today what is happening is careers are becoming much shorter than what they were. There was a time when pretty much you could say, okay, I've got a job, maybe this company, that company, but today I'm 35, I will retire at 60. I think now, when I got out of formal employment at 49, and I think now there are people who are getting into the work stream now who would feel that, okay, if I manage till 40, I'm happy with that. And they plan accordingly. I mean, we used to spend like there's no tomorrow, but now it's a different world. So now I think, yes, you need to engage with that external coach. And earlier also coaching was something which was largely corporate funded. Now, and in the last 1 year, I've had at least 4 or 5 people who've approached me directly asking me to help them. This is people who got stuck in their careers or people who want to make a change or whatever, but they've approached themselves. They are ready to fund it themselves. Yeah. And that's a switch that I'm seeing now.
Okay. So what it used to happen earlier was that somebody in the organization realizes that this person needs coaching so that he can go one level up or whatever it is. They never thought about career transition or anything. It was just to kind of upskill him on a later role coming up or a bigger challenge that is coming up. Now people have started realizing that, and that's what you're saying. People have started realizing that themselves, that I need to get coached, and then they have started approaching that. That's a very welcome change, right? Than somebody telling you that you need coaching and you yourself realizing that you need coaching. That's a welcome change, right?
Yeah. See, I think one is the uncertainty, two is the competition. And I think, that a lot of people, as they approach, say, 50, they begin to feel a lot of insecurity. They see youngsters occupying all top positions. I mean, earlier, you'd never have a CEO who's under 50. They'd be 55 or 58 and all sorts. Today, I mean, if you're not there by 35, 40, you can forget it. You're never going to make it. You're never going to be there. So it's a different world. And as they see, okay, my time is passing and I'm not getting to where I want to be, that's when it hits them. That
okay,
I need to do something about it. I cannot just wait for the organization to give me that dream role that I think I'm capable of. I need to make my own path.
Okay. So you said about uncertainty, and that's the times that we are living in today. Because I don't feel that any person or any career or any job is safe today, right? What are the precautions one must take in today's, having spent 25, 30 plus years there, and you've seen all these, what are the precautions one should take today in the uncertain times of today, Ravi?
Yeah. So, one mistake I've seen many people do is, if you are in a top position in an organization, you think you're cat's whiskers, you think you have to do nothing. And someday something happens, and let's say you're not in that organization anymore. from being a big fish in a small pond, you're suddenly a fish without water. And, unless you have invested in your own personal brand, so you need to network. You need to network big time, not just within your company, not just within your industry, but across. I think that's where social media has a big part to play. You have to get connected. You have to be known across the spectrum. And you need to keep, so you need to build yourself up. Okay, let me give you another personal example. So for me, consulting was something that I had thought, okay, one day I would like to be a consultant. And what I used to do in my last 10, 15 years of corporate life was that every month I would accept at least one speaking assignment, so that I would be there in the public eye. Within the HR fraternity, pretty much everyone had seen me speak. They knew that, okay, this is a guy who is maybe not a thought leader, but certainly he can think for himself and he can certainly speak out his thoughts. He can articulate them well. So I ensured that people knew who I was. And I think that's very important. If you are just going to be content with, okay, I'm a big shot in this particular company, the day that company is not around, you're nobody. You have no connections, you have no network, you have nothing. So you have to work on that, building that network right from the beginning and grow it across boundaries, across geographies, across locations, everything.
Okay. So the key thing is to network, to understand what is happening beyond it, and not be just the frog in the well kind of a thing, right? So that's very important. Yeah.
Sorry, and there is another aspect also, which is introspection. I think every 6 months or 1 year, you need to do, like a personal retreat. I mean, just go somewhere and be on your own and think. And just be there quietly. Don't have any agenda. Don't go with a book and your music and all that stuff, because then you fill time. I don't want you to do that. You need to be aware of yourself. You let your inside talk to you, tell you how it feels.
Yeah.
And too often, we are so busy doing things, we are so busy running around that we don't listen when those early signals are coming our way. And it's only when it reaches a stage where
there's no return.
I can't take it anymore.
There's no return there.
Hits you on the head and says, listen, I'm on out.
Okay. Got it. So, I'm very sure that's an advice that you would be giving to your coaches, because I've seen you practice it yourself in terms of your car drives and now the bike, Ravi. Is that something that you do personally also? That when you're on these long drives and you've seen most of India in your car and your bike. So, is that something that you do yourself?
Okay, so when I'm driving, I'm driving.
Okay.
I enjoy the drive. I enjoy the ride. No, what I'm talking about is, like sometimes when I get up really early in the morning, maybe 4:30, 5 o'clock, I sit in my balcony with my cup of tea. I wait for the sun to rise. And I'm just being aware of myself.
Is that the self-realization time, self-actualization time, as they call it?
And I think that's what many of us like.
So let's look from a practical sense of it, Ravi, because I see a lot of professional working folks here. This is a question to you from somebody who has done it. Yeah. Is it practically possible to take that retreat when you are working in a 24/7, 365-day kind of a work pressure? Is it practically possible for somebody to take that retreat?
See, the retreat doesn't need to be 10 days.
Okay.
It can be, even if it's a long weekend, 3 days, 4 days. See, the important thing is that you cut yourself off from your regular office work. I can see somebody making a comment.
Saying that if it can be planned, yes.
I totally agree. Yes, you need to plan it. And when you're doing that, tell people that I'm busy for a few days. I may not, set up that out of work thing.
Auto office
Yeah,
reply.
yeah, yeah. So that and see, I'll tell you one thing, a very simple thing, and this is not exactly related to this, but it helped me to control my time. And this is something a friend of mine told me about a few years ago. So he told me he disabled all notifications on his phone from everything. So if the phone rings, it rings, but otherwise WhatsApp comes, messages come, emails come, no lights, no sound, no nothing. And that's something that I did myself as well. I thought it was a fantastic idea. I did it myself. And I realized, see, when you have the time, probably within an hour or two, you're anyway going to pick up the phone and look. But you are doing it when you have the time. Otherwise, you're doing something, you're thinking something, it suddenly goes ping. You look at, okay, what is coming?
What is happening? Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes people can't even sleep in the night. They get these emails coming in and they want to respond right away. And I know there are so many of these bosses who feel that they need to show that they are on 24/7. So poor subordinate also needs to be on 24/7 as a result. But you have to create your boundaries.
Okay. So let's for a time just come into the process of this, right? So we've talked about how it is done, why it is done, and all that stuff. Let's just talk about the process of it. So if somebody identifies that, okay, he needs career transition, and he identifies that I need a coach, and he approaches you, how do you take him through this process? You've explained some bit of it, but just for the understanding of people who are here who might be wanting to take it at some point of time, what is this process? What is this duration? What are the things that he needs to commit or she needs to commit to be coached for this, Ravi?
Okay, so I think the first thing that they need to do is that self-exploration, to understand what is it that they are really passionate about, what is it that they really are good at. That's one, I think, step one. Step two is probably scanning the market and seeing where can these skills and talents be utilized. What kind of industry, what kind of work. And some people are talking about jobs, some people are talking about doing something for themselves, but essentially it's the same thing. So scanning the market. And once you do that and you sort of position yourself versus the options in the market, like you talked about the guy looking for the marketing role, and then you probably need to do some action planning about how am I going to do it, when am I going to do it. And I think that having that targets are very clear, very important. Having a clear target of I am going to do this by this time. Because unless you put deadlines for yourself, it's just a wish, it's just a desire. It probably may not happen.
May not happen.
So you have a target, you have a goal, you have milestones along the way, and you say, okay, these are the things I need to do in order to be there. So, for example, there was someone I was coaching recently. He, very senior finance guy in a large business house in India. But what he wanted to do was become a CFO. And he said, I don't want to be in a big company. I want a small, nimble place where, where I'm not pigeonholed into just this or just that. I'd like to do many, many things. And that's the kind of guy I am. So, and I told him, listen, but you need to be seen outside. So I got him to start writing articles, got him to start doing things so that, and he put up a schedule for it. So gradually he began to gain that visibility. Now, I don't know how long it's going to take him before he actually makes that transition that he is looking for, but he's getting the groundwork done right now.
Okay.
So it can take time, and that's the whole thing. It takes time, it takes commitment, and yeah, and you should believe in the process. This is not some mantra. This is not something that, okay, I wave my wand and okay, Off you go, go and
It
do it.
happens,
It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
happen like that.
You are the CFO tomorrow and it just changes tomorrow, and that doesn't happen, right?
It doesn't happen that way.
Okay.
I think the journey within is what is sometimes disconcerting, because sometimes you don't like the answers that you find,
Okay.
and you need to live with and accept them. You need to know that, okay, I may not like this, but this is who I am. I have anger issues. Whatever it is. I mean, anger issues just came up with. But you need to understand this is who I am, and this is what it does to me and my prospects. If I want to do something else, if I want to be someone else, I need to get a control of my anger, as an example.
Okay.
And then you actually start monitoring, okay, how often do I get angry? Who do I get angry with? Why do I get angry? Can I do something even when I get angry not to show that anger? Even that's good. If you can just keep it within yourself, if you can control your reactions when you are upset, that also is a good thing.
Understood.
And gradually you can learn how to control your emotions.
Okay. Ravi, as you said, the coachee that you've been working with and who wants to aspire to be a CFO at a company, of late we are seeing this transition also, right, Ravi, which never used to happen earlier. Because if you look at a CEO of a company, it typically used to be your sales and marketing guy who grows up and then becomes a CEO. But of late, I'm seeing a lot of guys from the other fraternities. I just read about a CHRO who's being moved as a CEO of a company. I saw a CTO who's getting promoted as a CEO of a company. I saw a CFO who's moved off a CEO. So that transition is happening, and industries are realizing that it need not be a sales and marketing fellow that comes up the ladder. So is there a support that coaches like you can provide in this transition? Because if you've been a HR person all through your life, moving up to a completely different P&L, all that role might be there. So is there a scope of coaching there also for people like you?
See, even if you're a CHRO, you would have sat through monthly review meetings, you would have sat through quarterly board meetings, and reading a balance sheet and being aware of profitability of the organization and all that is something that, I mean, you should have it. So, I think, yes, that sales and marketing guy being the CEO was the classical thing that happened first. Then the next wave was the CFOs, because they actually knew the financials, which the marketing guys didn't. The marketing guys wanted to do everything, all flashy stuff, but where is the money to come from? And sometimes they would just run out of money doing things which maybe not the most important thing. So the finance guys were the next lot who actually moved into important positions. The HR guys actually deal with everyone across the organization, and they have a fair understanding of what it takes in these various roles. After all, they're the ones who recruit everyone.
Correct.
Yeah? Like, I remember in my Biocon days, even if it was a CEO for one of the group companies, I mean, I would take someone who I had screened and who I thought this one is a suitable candidate. And I take 2 or 3, and that the choice is made from there. So obviously you have to have an understanding of business before you could be like that. Before the company trusts you to make that judgment call on who is the guy that you're going to bring up to us. Yeah? So gradually that awareness has happened, that everyone has got skills and abilities, and probably that the years that we spend in that management team, that's where we learn the ropes of the other functions. I mean, we may not be able to do it as well as the other guy, but on the top levels, it's direction, it's thinking. That's really important. You are not going to sit and actually do that little bit of nitty-gritty stuff yourself. You don't have the time, you don't have the luxury, but you provide the direction.
Absolutely. Okay. Ravi, you've worked with thousands of people through your career, and you've been working with people who want the transformation, who want the transition. And through this change from being the boss of the company and being somebody who people looked up to because you are inside that organization. Now, as a coach, what is the biggest challenge that you see um, of coaching, especially when you're getting these coaches coming in? What is that one big challenge that you're seeing?
Actually, Manoj, it hasn't changed. I think that there are two very important things, whether you are that senior guy in the organization or you're an external coach. The first thing is that the person has to trust you. Unless they trust you implicitly, they will not let you help them in that journey. And that's applicable both inside and outside. The second thing is that you need to make them believe in themselves. And that is often the more difficult part. So if you look through my LinkedIn, all the referrals given by people who worked with me in the past, I think there's a thread that runs through it. They will say, Ravi challenged me to do something that I thought was beyond my ability. And they do it, they get pleasantly surprised, and their confidence in themselves increases, and then they can take on more and more. A lot of people who had worked with me are CHROs today, and that's because I made them think bigger. And it's the same thing. So even the guy outside, even as an external coach, you have to make that person believe in himself. First, he has to trust you enough that he can share with you openly. And two, you have to instill that belief in himself that he can actually do it. Because as long as it's, okay, I'd like to do this, I'd want to do this, but I really don't know whether I've got it in me. See, nobody knows that you have something in you until you actually get that opportunity to do it. It's only that day when you go out and you're facing the fastest bowlers in the world, okay, I can be an opener.
Can do it.
Yeah.
So would that be your USP, Ravi? As a coach, would that be your USP? Making people think and do things that they don't believe that they could do. Would that be a...
So you help them prepare themselves, obviously. You do not want to set them up for failure. So you let them take on a challenge which you think it's stretch, but it's something that they can do.
Okay.
So you help them choose those challenges.
Okay.
And it's something that you build upon. You do this, then you do this, and you do this, then you do this, and then you arrive.
Okay. So for those who are looking at it, Ravi, who want to approach you or who want to look at career transition and have gone through this process and they've decided, what would be that one advice that you give? So the first thing that you said is that you be sure that you want to do it. That's the first thing that you said.
I think is the first thing. Because see, you need to be clear in your mind. And you need to have a compelling story, reason that you will have to tell other people. When they ask you, why are you doing this? You're doing so well in your career, you're running well. Why do you want to make this change? So you need to have that compelling reason. I think you need to also get your support system on board. The family, the spouse, the children, because they're used to certain luxuries that you could afford. When you're making this transition, maybe in the short term, maybe in the long term, you can't do the stuff that you could always do.
That was what I was coming to, the support system at home and otherwise. So there are compromises expected. Yes. How do you prepare that support system that way? How do you advise your coachee to have that support system?
See, I think they need to have frank conversations. They need to let those people know this is what happens to me in what I'm doing. This is why I don't want to do this anymore. And once and probably these people see you, when they see that you are not happy, when they see that you want to do something else, very often they will say, okay, go for it. I'm there.
Okay.
But if you have the good fortune where you're in a family with two bread earners, then it's much easier.
Much easier.
Yeah.
Much easier.
One takes
Right.
the risk, the other one stays put for during the
Okay.
duration.
Okay. Ravi, I've been in this whole journey of communication and been there in recruitment, spent almost 12 years doing that. And I've always felt that one of the most important things that has been missing, which I felt personally during my journey also, is a lot of upskilling requirements, which corporates do not play a lot of importance to. Yes, you reach a particular level and they say, okay, you need to get coached or something. But even at an entry level or at a fresher level or a mid-management level, a lot of these upskilling are really not given a lot of importance, because I've been talking to a lot of HR folks in terms of, say, for example, public speaking, something that I've been doing as a passion for quite a long time. But why is it that there is always this resistance to kind of put something like that? So there is always that challenge of saying, okay, my employee need to go through it, or should I put them through this, etc. So why should an organization invest into something like that? This is not purely related to career coach, and I'm talking about careers in the organization. And since I'm seeing a lot of senior folks here, I thought I would try to get your perspective also on that from that.
See, I feel that public speaking and communication skills in general is something which is basic to any senior leadership role. You cannot be a senior leader if you cannot sell a vision to somebody else. You have to get people to buy into what the dream that you have. You have to make them believe that that together we can do it. So, and that will only happen if you can tell that story. If you can make them believe that this is something that can be done. So it's a skill which comes with practice and training. But I think training comes first, practice comes afterwards.
Absolutely.
And it's something that it's not something that everyone is born with. At the start of my career, I was very, very nervous in any kind of presentations I had to do. Towards the end, I could walk into a room I used to walk into rooms I used to speak to guys from Wharton and Harvard and all that would come over to visit us. And I would take them through the corporate presentation. I would do Q&A sessions, talk to them for an hour and a half. And it was totally open-ended. They were shooting whatever they wanted at me. I had a comfort that I will be able
to do that, yeah.
But
that came with practice, right, Ravi? You spend that much of time.
Yeah. So
then when you do the same thing so many times, you automatically get a little good in that, better in that. I'm talking about typically people from the early years, the mid-management kind of folks who are really struggling, because I felt that some of them do so well in their careers, and then they get stuck because they're not even able to present the story. Because that's one thing that you really told during your initial this thing also, that can you sell your story? Why you're so. That itself is an important thing. And I've asked questions to people. The first question typically any HR folk or anybody would ask is, tell me about yourself. And I hear stories of, my dad is from the military, my uncle is a farmer, I grew up in this place. I get nothing about himself. I get things about everybody else in that planet except for himself. And when I'm waiting for that guy to tell me something about himself, that doesn't come. And I think that's a big missing area in this whole thing, and I think that's where the journey needs to head also. That's what I feel, Ravi.
Yeah. No, and see, so even this public speaking training that you are talking about, I think once somebody has gone through the basics, they've understood what to prepare, they've understood reading an audience, planning for what the audience would want, all that kind of stuff, and then you try out doing something, maybe a prepared speech, gradually you go into something which is more extempore. And then you'll feel that gradually over time, you're not so nervous as before, you become more confident, you become more articulate. Of course, you still need to prepare. I mean, even today, I've prepared before coming to speak with you.
Absolutely.
But the preparation need not be memorizing something.
Absolutely.
Preparation is really getting your thoughts together, having some points of what is it that I could talk about if those questions came my way.
Yeah. Interestingly, what we talk about in the workshop that I conduct is how not to memorize. Okay, because I think memorizing is the easiest thing to do. How do you create a speech without even having to memorize ever? So, and I've seen some of these success stories of guys who have come in for the workshop who have gone ahead and created amazing speeches, business presentations, um, without even having a chit in their hand, and they're able to kind of create because the purpose, the methodology is what is really important, and that's what we really work on. That. So thanks, Ravi, for that. There's one interesting question which has come from Sheetal in the chat. We have multiple questions, but I'm just taking what is really relevant to what we are talking about here. How to find people who are coachable and grow in career and willing to climb up the ladder. So how do you find people who are actually coachable? So
does she mean from within an organization, or Sheetal, you can just
otherwise generally because she's a coach herself in terms of she does subconscious mind solutions and those kind of things. So how do you find a coachee? That's the question.
Yeah. So I think any kind of coaching interaction begins with what I call a chemistry session, where you get to know each other. The coachee should feel that this is somebody I can work with. And you also get that impression, is this somebody who can be coached? Because if you feel, okay, fine, he or she is not where they want to be, but there is nothing that I can do with them right now, then it's probably not what you want. It's probably not something that you would like to explore. But I tell you, my most enjoyable coaching interaction, I got an opportunity to coach somebody who had worked 35 years in an MNC bank, that particular bank. I mean, and she and I had roughly started our career more or less the same month.
Time.
More or less the same month. But she'd been in that one bank right through. She was reporting to the MD. She was handling some 3-4 different businesses. And I wondered, how can I coach her? What is it that she doesn't know about her setup? But those were the most fulfilling sessions for me and for her. Because for her, she needed somebody who could be a sounding board. She wanted to talk about what next for me. And her what next was not within the organization. Her what next was outside the organization. As well as she, even some of the challenges that she was facing within the organization, other than her CEO, there was nobody she could talk to. So she enjoyed those sessions. And we used to spend and she didn't want to meet in office. So we used to meet for breakfast. We used to talk for an hour, have breakfast, talk for another hour. So it was pretty long, more or less 9 to 12 kind of thing in the morning on Saturdays. But it was fantastic coaching sessions.
Okay. And I'm very sure she made the transition also, right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that's the power of it. Okay, Ravi, I'm taking one last question and then we've just overshot the time by a couple of minutes. So I have a question, a very personal question. She sent it to me personally, so I'm assuming that she doesn't want to put it in the group. So she says, my career is stuck in a startup organization. Here I have done everything, including sales, operations, and now I am in HR for the last 5 years. I'm not able to get out of this because my transition into different roles in the same organization. So the whole thing is that she has done everything, and probably her resume talks about everything in that. The current organization understands what I do and what I cannot do. But when I go for an interview, I'm not able to convince my transition into this. So this is a typical scenario in a startup organization where the person comes in and does everything right from the front office to this every role.
It's not just startup organizations; it's really small organizations versus large organizations.
Okay.
Large organizations have a very clear-cut boundaries, and even within HR, somebody's only doing recruitment, somebody's only doing L&D, somebody's only doing comp and ben. And I mean, you can have spent 20 years in comp and ben, they won't let you do L&D. So it's like that. But so it is, like what I said in the beginning, that she needs to build that story. She needs to be able to talk her way into
Would you think that she's somebody who needs to be coached a bit in terms of what she wants to do?
Maybe not. It's hard to say that offhand.
Okay.
But clearly,
she is a candidate.
Yeah, she's a candidate. She's someone who should first of all decide, okay, I've done all these different things in this startup. What is it that I want to do in the next place? So first thing is decide that.
Starting from there, yeah.
Yeah. And then you have to rebuild your whole CV aiming at that. And whatever people talk to you, even if you're talking about your HR part, even if you're talking about your marketing part, those answers have to tally with what is it that you're aiming for. They have to see a congruence between what you've done and what you're aspiring for. So that's really the thought process that's involved.
Okay.
It's not easy, but again, people who've worked in these smaller, nimbler organizations, they are not always comfortable in very large places where they have a very stifling setup. So ideally, I would say look for something which is not much larger than what you are, where you are. So
go one step further.
You still have the same kind of atmosphere.
Okay.
Because the atmosphere of a startup and the atmosphere of a sedate 50-year-old organization is vastly different.
Okay. But if, in case if she needs to get in touch with you, Ravi, and then have the discussion, how does she get in touch with you? Is an email is a good option?
An email is good. I'm on LinkedIn. There's some 34,000 people who are connected with me on LinkedIn. I'm sure if she looks for Ravi Siddharth Gupta on LinkedIn, she'll find me.
Or can I put the email ID here?
You can put the email ID. You can put the phone number and no issues at all.
Ravi at rcdconsulting.in.
rcdhrconsulting.in.
Okay.
And let me put my number also.
Okay, I put that. Ravi, I have another question from Kumar. Yeah, we're just overshooting our time a little bit, but I'm getting some interesting questions at the last minute. So I think I'll just go through that. Is that okay with you, Ravi?
Yes? I'm good.
Yeah. Most people hit the ceiling at 15 plus years, but most people may not get an elevation in their organization. So they hit the ceiling there. But during exploration, they only want to do jobs. They don't want to get out of a career. They still want to kind of continue jobs. So how can we help them?
Is he also a coach?
I am not too sure.
Okay. Yes. Okay. He says yes. Yeah. So they need to understand that you cannot go and do the same thing that you're doing somewhere else, because once you realize that you've hit the ceiling, you've hit the ceiling. If you're not going to go anywhere else in your organization, you're probably not going to go anywhere else in some other organization as well. And you need to wake up to the realization that, okay, what else can I do now? I'm still energetic. I still want to do stuff. What is it that I can contribute? How can I make a difference? See, yeah, some people want to be entrepreneurs, and maybe entrepreneurs are very big word. Some people want to do things for themselves on their own. There are some who are comfortable in a work organization. So one thing I do is, whenever I come across people like that, I try to tell them, please come for a BNI meeting. Because my personal experience was, I came to my first BNI meeting when I had got out of my corporate. I had not yet started I'd started doing that survey, but I had not really I hadn't even got my GST done or anything. But going there and seeing, that 40, 50 people with making a livelihood out of so many things which I never even thought were a viable option, made me think, yeah, if they can do it, I can definitely do it. And I think that's what people lack courage. Yeah? The courage is what you need to instill in the person. That's what I said. He needs to have faith in himself. If he has faith, Mr. Kumar, I'm sure he or she will be able to take that lead.
And I totally agree to you that BNI is the right place to find it, because I found it there as well. Okay, so we have good friend Ravina who's asking a slightly different question, but I think I can look at it because it applies to a lot of people in the corporate career also. She's an architect and she has multiple interests like fine art, science research, natural landscape, sustainability, etc., etc. Would pursuing my other interests professionally benefit me, or is it better to focus only on one thing? The reason that question is, what is your opinion on pursuing all of this simultaneously? So, what I understand is that in her mind, she wants to pursue all of this simultaneously, but she's asking for an opinion.
Yeah. So, Ravina, if you have the bandwidth to pursue all simultaneously, go for it. If you don't, you need to reduce it to 2 or 3. But I will anyway say that if you are trying to explore a different direction, it's better that you do that exploration when you are still grounded somewhere. You try it out, you get a feel of it, you see, is this what I really want to do? And try to do it when you have one foot grounded firmly somewhere. In fact, a lot of books which by people who have been entrepreneurs, for example, there's a book written by the guy who founded LinkedIn. He was very clear in his mind that do not make a clean break and start afresh. He said, begin when you're still in something, you're still working in your job, explore, get the feel of it, take that new baby up to a certain level to where it can sustain. The first 2-3 years are usually very difficult times. So if you can do that while you're already working somewhere, if you have the bandwidth, go for it.
Right, Ravi. So thank you so much, Ravi. It was an absolute pleasure having you here. We've taken almost 15 minutes extra time, but I think it was totally worth it. I really enjoyed the discussion with you because I think this is a real good rendezvous with you in terms of opening up. You shared a lot of personal experiences also, and that always really resonate well because if they can do it, all of us can do it too. And some great examples also. And I'm very sure a lot of them would want to connect with you. So this is how you can connect up with Ravi. And to connect up with me, I'll also put my contact details there. Anybody wants to touch base with us, please feel free to do that. Thanks again, Ravi, for being here. Over to you, Anandita.
Thank you all for attending the first segment of In Conversation. There are many more discussions coming up, and we hope you will be able to join us. The next session of In Conversation will be with Ms. Neha Mathur, a very popular and much sought after image consultant and etiquette expert, and she's the founder of The Missing Piece, an image consultancy firm. Join us on the 7th of Feb at 5 p.m. The link for the registration is in the chat, and we look forward to seeing you there. Hope you all have a great evening, and thank you once again.